Tonight, Congressman Steve Scalise remains in critical condition after a gunman targeted Republican lawmakers this morning, shooting Scalise and 3 others at a practice for tomorrow's congressional baseball game. Joining me now with the latest is Peter Williams, NBC News Justice correspondent. And Peter, we've learned quite a bit about the shooter today.
Yes, a great deal, all except the critical question. What was he doing here, and why did he suddenly become violent? We know he's 66-year-old James T. Hodgkinson, known to his friends as Tommy. This is a picture from an earlier run-in that he had with the law. But for the most part, the police say he wasn't much trouble. There was an incident at his home in Belleville, Illinois, which is a suburb of St. Louis. In late March, when he was out in the woods target practicing, neighbors called the police. The sheriff came and said, "You got to go somewhere else," and he said fine and didn't put up a fight. At some point after that, we don't know the exact day, investigators say, he came here to the Washington into Washington area in a white cargo van that he has apparently been living out of ever since, sometimes even sleeping on a bench in the park where today's shooting took place. He showered apparently in the YMCA, which is just across the street from the ball field. But people who came in contact with him here over the past several weeks say he never appeared to be violent. He never expressed violent tendencies, didn't seem to be dangerous. In fact, he talked to the former mayor who used the same YMCA about trying to find a job. So the motive is unclear. Now, it is known that he had some very strong feelings about the Republican Party in general. He's been expressing these for at least the past decade, first in letters to the editor of his local paper, and then when social media became a common platform, he expressed his views on Facebook and Twitter. And he'd been quite bitter about his opposition to President Trump, used obscenities to talk about his hatred for Trump. Just as recently as 2 days ago, was posting to Facebook about Trump. And we know that he was also last year a volunteer for the Bernie Sanders campaign, and also in 2011 joined the Occupy Wall Street demonstration in St. Louis. But it's a long trip to come here from Belleville, Illinois to Washington, and it's also a long trip metaphorically to go from someone with strong views to someone who suddenly picks up an assault rifle and opens fire after asking a witness nearby whether the people who are playing baseball today are Republicans or Democrats. So why he did that, why he came here, why he became violent is what the FBI is trying to figure out, Chris, and tonight they say they don't know.
All right, Pete Williams, thanks for joining us.
You bet.
Before today, the most recent shooting of a member of Congress took place on January 8th, 2011.
It is with a heavy heart today that I join my colleagues in paying respects to the victims of the senseless tragedy that took place last weekend in Arizona. I extend my prayers to the families of those who lost their lives, to the wounded and the recovering, and to our dear colleague, Gabby Giffords.
That, of course, was Congressman Steve Scalise on the House floor more than 6 years ago after Arizona Congresswoman Gabby Giffords was shot in the head while meeting with constituents outside a supermarket in Tucson. 6 people died that day, including a congressional aide, a federal judge, a 9-year-old girl. Congresswoman Giffords survived, thanks in large part to the quick thinking of 20-year-old intern Daniel Hernandez. And joining me now is Daniel Hernandez, now Democratic State Representative for Arizona. And Daniel, thank you for making time. I thought of today, and I thought of your story and wondered what your reaction, what you made of today.
You know, the attack today on the GOP members of Congress really was an assault on our democracy. And for me, it reminded me what happened in the immediate aftermath of the shooting in Tucson, where there was a lot of chaos and a lot of confusion, but I think a lot of questions as to where do we go from here. And I think one of the things that I heard Representative Lance say that I think was really heartening was we need to come together. So to hear not just Democrats, but now Republicans saying we need to work on finding solutions. He said that he hopes that this never happens again. And I think it's totally within the realm of possibility to prevent something like this from happening again. But a hope without a plan is just a dream. And unfortunately, we're living in an American nightmare where over 90 Americans are dying each and every single day. So for me, hearing the news today, it broke my heart once again to see a member of Congress, but any people being targeted and attacked with gun violence, but also reminded me that there's so much work that we should have done and continue to need to do to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
I want to read what the woman you used to work for, Gabby Giffords, had to say. If you serve the institution of Congress, you're connected to your colleagues, current and former, by a shared sense of service to ideals far greater than yourself. This shooting is an attack on all who serve and on all who participate in our democracy. And I wanted to ask you, as someone who experienced this at a public event, a public-facing event, this horrible thing happened, and then you yourself chose to go into politics. And I talked to Hakeem Jeffries and Leonard Lance about how important it is for representatives to be in contact with the public. What made you decide after this happened to still want to go and be out talking to people?
I'd always wanted to help people from the young age of about 6 when I wanted to go into healthcare, and having the experience with Congresswoman Giffords and other folks that taught me about the importance of public policy and the way that it impacts people's lives, I decided that I wanted to get involved, so I interned in Gabby's office. But after the shooting, I decided that the best way for me to be able to impact and to be able to help people with the problems that they had every single day was to run for an office at the local level. And now I'm serving as a state representative, but it really strengthened and cemented my desire to be out there talking to people. And I think it's one of my responsibilities as an elected official, as it is for members of Congress, to be out there in the public. We cannot segregate ourselves. We can't silo ourselves off. We need to be out there talking to our constituents and hearing directly from them what their needs are. And that's why I think it's so important what Representative Jeffries said, which is we need to be talking to our constituents. We cannot be in a glass house. We need to be out there talking to folks. And I think that's, for me, one of the reasons why I refuse to be terrorized. I've had death threats. I've had things happen to me over the last 6 years where people have said things that are not great, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to back away from representing the folks that I got elected by, but also talking about the issues that I care about, whether it's LGBT rights or gun violence prevention. We need folks being out there and being vocal about the things that we care about if we want to actually enact change in this country.
All right, Daniel Hernandez, I really appreciate you taking some time tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.